Bernstein and Woodward would have asked, now, Mr. President, did you have anything to do with Watergate?
Mm-hmm.
And Nixon would have said, no, I'm glad you asked. I had nothing to do with Watergate, boys.
And they would have walked away.
And they would have said, thanks, Mr. President. We apologize, but we had to ask. Now we can close that case.
And what I mean, the whole. I'm thinking to myself yesterday or the day before we spoke with Terry Lakin. Why didn't he save Terry Lakin's bacon?
Well, in fact, the same document that was released just a few, to save Obama from the pressure, was not released to prevent Terry Lakin from losing his commission in the Army and to going to prison, which shows, again, that Barack Obama has zero regard for anybody but himself. And to me, further questions whether the document is legitimate. Because if all the new information was if the only information that was new on this document was the hospital at Kapiolani and that the doctor's name was Sinclair,
right?
If that's the simple document that they always had,
what was the big deal?
Why didn't they release it even 3 years ago?
Thank you.
Instead of the certificate of live birth.
I need to do this, sir. I need to take a pause, and I know you have some new info this morning. You're going to give it to us after the pause. Jerry Corsi's here. Where's the birth certificate? Try and get Miss Calhoun on. We have an endorsement for this is going to be good, for Michael Hancock. Also, Mickey Booth in Hawaii was going to speak with us this morning as well. And this whole, isn't it interesting watching the press that can't find anything, and for 10 years Schwarzenegger has a kid. A lot to talk about. You hang on, 630 KHOW. All right, 10 before the hour, 5:50, 630 KHOW, 56 the high today. We're going to speak with Mickey Booth after the top of the hour. Miss Calhoun from Westward, 56 the high today. Dr. Jerry Corsi is with us. You know what's interesting, Doc, is the Denver Post last Wednesday, and I kept it, reviewed the book on Barack Obama's mom, Ann Dunham, and they gave her this glowing review. And, in fact, the book that's out now, we're trying very hard to get Janie Scott on the radio show, New York Times reporter, who frankly just repeats the nativity story. I'll read from her. In her first months as a college freshman, by 17 years of age, she got pregnant by her first boyfriend, an older student from Kenya named Barack Obama, who left her when the baby was 11 months old. Twice she married men. Stop right there. That's a lie. The next one, twice she married, is a lie. Now this morning they review The Lies of Sarah Palin, Wednesday's books, Denver Post, and they just give it this. There's not a problem with this book. This is good stuff, and they call it The Myth of Sarah Palin, the dark story, often painful, cover-up after cover-up, lie after lie. Same newspaper, same book reviews. I'm fascinated by that because let's just take that for the first go-round. How old was Barack Obama when his mother and father split, if they were ever together?
Well, he was about under 2 years old, and what I show in the book and the exhibits and discuss it at length is that Ann Dunham, mother, within 3 weeks of when the baby was born, left Hawaii and went to Seattle, where she enrolled at the University of Washington at Seattle, took night extension courses. I've got the transcript on page 204, Exhibit 85. Exhibit 86 shows her address in the Polk directory. Exhibit 87 shows a photograph of where she had her apartment, the home which she had her apartment. She lived there with the infant for 2 years, took classes, and did not return to Hawaii until after Barack Obama Sr. had left the islands. I can't find any evidence that mother and father lived together a day as man and wife. Barack Obama had an apartment on 11th Avenue in Seattle, in Honolulu, when they were married, supposedly. There's no marriage certificate anyone's ever found. And the address that's in the newspaper birth announcements is the address of the grandparents, who I've always maintained were the ones who filed the birth, even though the baby was not born in Hawaii. I'm increasingly convinced that the baby was born in Kenya.
You really believe that, don't you?
Yes. Well, Peter, I've gotten the documents, and I discuss it in the book, from Kenya. I must now have 30 or 35 internal government documents The government of Kenya began a search in 2007. Grandmother Sarah, Obama's step-grandmother, has been saying not just once in a recorded interview, but over years that she was present at Obama's birth in Mombasa. And the government of Kenya searched with intelligence services for 3 years, and they came to the conclusion that the 1961 birth records had been criminally tampered so as to eliminate evidence of Obama's birth in Mombasa.
This man, there's a list of things. The Obama-Dunham marriage license, I don't think it doesn't exist. The divorce, which was released by an independent investigator, but pages are missing.
Right, pages which may have included adoption records.
All right, Neolani kindergarten records.
Right.
Saturo Dunham marriage license has never been released.
I list a whole chapter in here of the missing records and why they're important.
Saturo adoption records.
Correct.
Francis of Assisi School, that school app was released, but not by, that was when it came out where he has proclaimed another faith. But that's not him, he's a kid. Panahu School app, missing.
Correct.
Panahu School records, missing. Neolani third grade. Now you got that weird picture where he's supposed to be someplace else, but he's a picture with this other little kid.
Scott, in a way. Scott, I've got the picture right here. Look at
the whole Connecticut SSN issue.
Yes. Is using a Social Security number issued in Connecticut.
Selective service.
Where Barack Obama was never in Connecticut.
The Selective Service Registration, which has been that's been tampered. Occidental College, financial aid, passport. You do a good piece in the book on the passport. I just got the book, by the way, on my desk this morning. Actually, it was on Sheik's desk, so I'll be reading it today. But his passport records, Columbia College, Harvard, baptism records, medical records.
Right.
These things are
all missing, not available to be inspected by the public. Barack Obama refuses to release them.
Dreams from my father is nothing more than a PR stunt.
Right. And, these are serious issues. Barack Obama, it's not just whether he was born in Hawaii. Even the document Barack Obama released from the White House saying his father was Barack Obama Sr., then he was a dual citizen at birth. He was a citizen of the Commonwealth of Great Britain, and our founding fathers never meant a dual citizen at birth would be a natural-born citizen. It's not a question of whether he's a citizen, but under Article 2, Section 1, a natural-born citizen. And then on page 215 of the book, Exhibit 100, I show Ann Dunham's passport records from Indonesia, where she crosses off Barack Obama on her passport records, puts down his Indonesian surname, Soebarka. And again, this is an indication that Barack Obama had become an Indonesian citizen, may have had an Indonesian passport. Of course, Barack Obama won't release his passport records, so we don't know for sure. But if he was an Indonesian citizen, he again lost his natural-born citizenship status because he was a dual citizen while child in Indonesia.
So, I know we're short on time. We'll get you back next week. I'm going to obviously read the book.
Well, I want to give you the basic hint of what happened. And now, I'm getting very close to having the whole story now, and it's pretty clear to me that Ann Dunham got pregnant in 1960, late 60. She'd been hanging around a bar, Bill Lederer's bar in Honolulu, on Hotel Street. Bill Lederer wrote The Ugly American. And it looks like Ann Dunham wanted Barack Obama Sr. to be the father. She told her friends, Maxine Box and others in Seattle, that she was going to go off Barack Obama while he got his education. They were going to return together to Africa. He was going to be head of state eventually. She would be the first lady. I think Ann Dunham had this big fantasy life in terms of where she was headed. Best I can now piece it together, and I'm going to be increasingly writing about kind of filling out the story in WND. Ann Dunham, I think, went by herself I was just in Hawaii last week picking up additional information. Went by herself to Africa to try to convince Barack Obama's family to accept her. The grandmother picked her up in Nairobi, made sure she got to Mombasa, where the grandmother had brothers and sisters, never brought her to the home village. The baby was born. When Ann Dunham got back, she realized this dream was not going to work with Barack Obama. He had no interest other than using her to show the Immigration and Naturalization Service he had an American wife and child, and that only lasted for a little while.
And Barack Sr.'s father was adamant
did not want a white woman having his son's baby.
Not at all.
At any rate, so this I think accounts for why Ann Dunham left Hawaii, and the estrangement, and Barack Obama seems to have displayed a great interest in impregnating women, but very little interest in being a father, having a long-term relationship with that woman as truly we would understand wife. At any rate, this, I think, begins to put together the story, and it makes the documents I've gotten from Kenya fit in place. Barack Obama Jr., the president, I think has many issues on eligibility, dual citizenship, which has not been examined. When they released the birth, I was in Hawaii last week, Peter. When I went to Hawaii, I went to the Department of Health and said, I'd like to see the long-form paper birth certificate. It's going to be submitted to forensic examination. No one at the Department of Health would talk to me. I went over to Kapiolani and I said, why didn't Barack Obama release his mother's, Kapiolani released the mother's patient records? And Kapiolani said if I didn't leave the premises immediately, they were going to call the police.
Let me do this, sir. How about Monday? And they'll give me a chance today. Tomorrow's Thursday, and I got a really busy couple of days. Or get the book finished. We'll have you back.
Fine.
You're honest to God, Jerry. You're on the right track. There's no doubt.
I'll be coming back. I'll come back on the show anytime you ask.
Done. I'm gonna put you on hold. Speak with Greg, and maybe we can even do some of that on Friday, Greg, if you would. We're behind for news. We got a lot more to come. Stay here, 630 KHOW.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.